Welcome to the Aiki Dojo Podcast. I am David Ito, Chief Instructor of the Aikido Center of Los Angeles. And with me is
Bill D'Angelo from the Aikido Center of Los Angeles. Today's topic is old versus new in Aikido instruction. Old school versus new school.
Oh, yeah. It's an interesting topic.
So what do you think new old school was or is? And we can get to whether anyone's doing old school anymore, but what is, from your experience as a student and as a teacher, what does old school mean?
We'll see. I don't know. This one of the things you really should think about is Aikido relevant? Right. So is it relevant? I mean, traditional martial arts in general aren't relative.
Yeah, they're losing their relevance.
Yeah.
Well, they're losing their appreciation in practice.
Well, no, it's not that they're losing their appreciation in practice. They're just not relevant anymore. Right? For the most part, most people don't get into fights.
Right.
They're not getting into fights, and then you're never going to use it. So the martial aspects of martial arts is not relevant anymore. So which leads us to this idea of like, what's the difference between old school teaching and new school teaching? New school teaching, you have to kind of find how to make it relevant in the 21st century person's life. Old school, it's something you kind of did to defend yourself. You did because it was your familial thing. There's all these reasons why you did it other than just because you want to do it.
But you don't think there's still a martial self-defense purpose to...
Oh, no,
there's got to be, right?
There is.
Yeah.
But people aren't flocking to Aikido
for
to
that.
Learn how to fight.
Right.
So because they're not coming to Aikido to learn how to fight, Aikido is losing its edge. And because it's losing its edge, it has to be taught a different way. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand.
The old school way of being taught, it is focused on the student. They're both focused on the student, but the old school way of being taught is the onus of learning is placed upon the shoulders of the student.
Right.
Today, the onus of learning is laid on the shoulders of the teacher. Both ways, new and old, force the student to have to become a better student. But today, there's no consequences. So in the old days, if you did something the teacher didn't like, they just kicked you out.
Right.
Today, they go, well, they're all customers. That person's $150 a month, so we can't kick them out.
So maybe that's like one of the first things that we can talk about in terms of old versus new. Old really didn't emphasize the sort of Western idea of as you say, a customer. And so it was harsher because it was maybe trying to be more martial.
It's harsher because there was no time. Some of these people had to go use this on a battlefield. Some of these people had to get up to speed quickly so that there wasn't a dojo yabure. They'd storm the dojo and everybody's got to be up to speed.
Yeah, you got to participate and defend.
Right. So the competency levels of people of the past are much higher than they are today. The ability of the student to learn was ideally better in the old days. But see, that remains to be seen. Today, we have all the tools to become better, but we have not yet achieved the milestone of developing teachers like Seigo Yamaguchi, Hisabaru Sawa Sensei. Like, where are those people?
Right.
Those people that you just go like, whoa, this person's like doing Aikido on another level. I mean, a lot of these teachers are good. They're fast, they're strong, but I don't know of how many of them are of the level of the Arikawa Sensei, the Yamaguchi Senseis, the second doshus of the world. So that's the thing, is that you wonder if is it taught in a different way? Are human beings different today? Is all martial arts in general losing its touch?
It's almost as if old versus new is also traditionally Asian versus Western mental framework. Because, we've talked about old school being like show, not tell, student, not customer. And then new school, there's a greater emphasis in like people want to understand what they're doing, not so much not actually just do what they're told to do. They want to understand the context. They want to understand how it works. They want to know the body mechanics. And it's like when you have to stop to teach all those things, it's almost like you run out of runway.
Yeah, no, Kojima Sensei from Zen-Shuji Temple told me that a ton of people come to the Dharma talks, but no one stays after
for Zazen.
For Zazen.
Yeah.
And so today, like I can't tell you how many people tell me how it is. Oh, Aikido philosophy is this. And they're not wrong, but just knowing it doesn't mean you can do it or understand it with your heart.
Right.
I mean, I go to lunch with people that used to do Aikido or they're, influential in the Japanese American community. And they're like, oh, Aikido's like this. And I go, yeah, you're not wrong. Oh, so there's such that. Yeah, you're not wrong. But then they're not ever going to come train.
They're not going to do it.
So they're learning the philosophical, spiritual, and the understandings of Aikido, but they can't do Aikido. So it's just talk. So, we think about this idea of old and new. In the old days, the proof was in the pudding.
Yeah.
You never said anything if you could do it.
And Furuya Sensei, our teacher, rarely in the class, I mean, you would never know that Ki was part of Aikido. He studied in our school. For the most part, it was like, here's the technique. Here's how it works. Well, actually, not here's the technique. Do the technique.
Well, the reason why he didn't talk about Ki that much is because he saw how easily people can become diverted, misled, confused by this aspect of this idea that most people can't explain.
But going on this old versus new, that seems to me something that you still uphold as a teaching tenet, that you don't really talk about.
I don't really talk about it
and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I don't talk about it because the students got to move their feet.
Right.
They got to get our dojo. I don't know about other dojos. At our dojo, it was taught to me as a martial art, and I tried to teach it as a martial art. Whether or not you're ever going to even use it, it's not the point. The point is that it's a tool that you will always have that you can defend yourself with, but also the technical aspects spill over into your regular life, and then you learn how to, for lack of a better word, harmonize with people.
Right.
You learn how to be nonviolent with other people.
But it sounds to me like the way you're explaining it, that there's still a pretty strong old school component to Aikido Center of Los Angeles.
Yeah, but is it even me? I go, people say stuff to me, and I go, what? And when I was a student, someone mouthed off to sensei like that.
What's a good example of that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this.
I told a student something the other day, and he goes, no. And I go, what did you say? And he goes, oh, I mean, not no. It's just I meant, and he tried to talk his way out of it.
Yeah.
But if Sensei was alive and he was the teacher,
kill you.
And no, and someone did that, I'd have murdered that person. Yeah. But then you can't, Aikido's not like that anymore. When I was a student, we talked about this before, is that the dojo was like Gladiator's Arena. Yeah. Everyone was beating up each other and no one liked each other. But then that created this animosity inside the dojo.
Right.
And then that's what caused 2 or 3 of Sensei's assistants to quit, betray, leave him, steal all the students. And you go, dude, but you Sensei created that, whether Sensei knew it or not, Furuya Sensei created that environment.
That dynamic,
because it was all, jutsu based.
But one thing I think, I mean, you've been here longer than me. This is my 30th year. This is like your 35th year, right?
No, 33 going next year will be 34.
Wow. So one of the things I was thinking is old versus new on this dojo, and I think you've done a really good job at this, but this dojo has a lot of people that have been here a long time.
I wouldn't say I did anything. The thing that I tried to do today is I tried to understand the mindset of the modern person,
contemporary student,
and try to understand that, like, look, if I had the choice to make them technically good or a good person, I would always choose a good person.
Yeah.
Because you could be really good and just be a jerk.
Right.
And then you could be really good and your life is all messed up. Right. And then isn't the teacher's job to teach the person, to give them balance? That's what I try to think. How do I give these people balance? But then giving them balance gives them the leash to choke themselves with. Because they're not coming to class today. They're going to go have balance and have fun. And then they take it too far. Right. So that I wonder out loud, like, oh, Am I creating as good a students as Furuya Sensei? Oh, maybe not. Then I feel all bad. Like, am I doing a disservice? But then I don't have the heart to go, you better be here every day, but like perhaps people need to kind of understand what old school teaching is, right? Like old school teaching, the teacher is the top of the pyramid. The teacher is paramount. Whatever the teacher says,
You do it.
You do it. And the only thing that's supposed to come out of your mouth is, hey. And the amount of time between when the teacher says something and then you say hi is supposed to be the amount of ego you have. Because in that moment, you're calculating
how to react
and how to be the best and how to suck up and all these things. So that's your ego.
Is there, I mean, it's just like a quick thought I had when you're describing this. Is there an element of development to this so that in the first 20 years, you've got to be in order to learn something that's lethal, you have to just do what you're told. But like 20 years in or 30 years in, is there a shift in the senior student's mentality?
There's supposed to be a shift in 10 years, but the reason why you're supposed to answer that way and blindly follow your teacher and do whatever the teacher says is because the teacher looks at you and figures out this is the best thing for Bill. Mm-hmm. And then they go about giving that to you. Yeah. And so Bill might need a smiting because Bill thinks he's smart. So Bill needs this. Bill needs to be beat up. Bill needs to be, he has to clean the bathroom while everyone else doesn't have to, do all these different things so that, because Bill needs that for his development. And so when the teacher says you do this thing, you're trying to train yourself to go height because you're trying to, there's several reasons why you're supposed to blindly follow your teacher, but like you have to, the teacher has to be able to, in less words than necessary, go, turn your left foot in.
Right.
You go, which foot is I don't know, Sensei. And you start talking and then
it's lost,
but like, you're not in that mode. The teacher has to go, turn your foot in, and then you do it. Because you're so well trained. Or the teacher shows the technique once
and you do it.
And you catch it because you're so well trained. Because in the beginning of martial arts training, you're supposed to get good at just watching and copying. Right. Rinanai Keiko, that you watch and copy, and then you copy it exactly as the teacher or master does it, so that you can make it as perfect as possible. So that later on, the technique, the art is in your body and in your blood, and then the art will have a next generation.
So I think there's a really interesting parallel to what may be the most popular physical exercise, especially at the women, is yoga. I know that you have studied yoga. I've done it a little bit. What I noticed, because my girlfriend's a yoga teacher, is when we talk about old versus new style in teaching, and I talk about the see and copy, she's like, no, the modern way is to have it explained and then do it.
Malcolm Gladwell says it's 10,000 hours to become an expert. In Japanese, to become a takumi expert, 30,000 hours. Right? 30,000 hours, 10,000 hours. And you think, oh my God. And then the Japanese don't say 10,000 hours or 30,000 hours. They say 30,000 days. 10,000 days. So you do the math and you go, oh my God.
That's a lot of hours.
And that's why you're supposed to start your art in the 6th year of the 6th month on the 6th day
of your life.
Right. So whatever that 6th month of your 6th year and the 6th day of that month. So you're supposed to start at 6 years old. So when you put in your 30 years and you're an expert, you're 36 years old.
Right. You're like young middle age.
Right. Yeah. But the thing is that in order to get you to that level that you're an expert at 36, that you need that brutality, that violence, because you have to shock the person into doing whatever you say. You have to slap them so that they're awake, they're ready to go. They're afraid. Because again, they're not, teachers of old are not thinking about your inner child,
There's no coddling.
No, because there's no time. Right. And so that's the hard part where people in those days, you beat them into submission. When I was a student, they would beat it out of you.
Yes,
so
I remember.
Anything you had that was a problem,
got beat out of you.
You're afraid to roll, beat it out of them, throw them 50 times. They're afraid to go up against big people. You are going to go with him the whole class. Whatever you
confront your fears, confront your things that are holding you back?
I don't even know if I think confront's too light of a word. It is beat it out of you. Oh, you have a problem? Well, they're going to beat it out of you.
Do you think, this is a totally random thought, but it's really came to me while you were talking. Do you think that the post-pandemic where people are now working from home, it's kind of like a new situation, does it affect the ability for the traditional style of Aikido where people went to work every day, they go to practice every day, and now like things are just completely crazy different. And so having that structure is harder because people don't have it in their regular life anymore.
Well, it's not that it's a structural problem. Is that I work in downtown LA. I get off at 5 o'clock, 9 to 5, right? I want to go home, but man, look at that traffic. So if I drive home in traffic, it's an hour and a half. I might as well just go to the dojo and then get home in 30 minutes. That seems like a better use of my time.
Right.
So now that you're not coming to downtown LA,
it's a big calculus.
Now I got to get in the car and I got to drive 30, 40 minutes to the dojo. I don't know, because this doesn't really fit into your lifestyle anymore. Right. But remember, in the old days, you did not work. You worked at the dojo. Your job was to do
take care of the
samue or same and take care of the dojo, do the weeding, grow the vegetables and all those things, right? So today you don't have that. Right. In the old days, the students had no money. So the teacher paid for everything. The teacher fed you, clothed you.
Housed you.
Yeah. And then how did the teacher do that? The teacher was probably, because there wasn't very many teachers.
Upper class.
The teacher had a patron. And the patron would come and give money or leave money at a certain place. So the teacher wouldn't have to
have a job,
usurp their dignity to have a school. So this famous person or wealthy person would go there and leave money. And you go, well, Sensei has 20 students. Oh, that's probably, well, here's, $200. And then that's what, Sensei's wife would use to feed these people because you have a patron. But today you don't have patrons. Right. You have customers. Oh, I'm so happy and glad that this person joined and paid their dues. Oh, they paid their dues again. That's so happy. Right? Because if not, there's no place to go. And that's why that's the thing that's hurting martial arts perhaps, is that all the great teachers have to have real people jobs. So no one can be a full-time Aikido teacher. And because no one can be a full-time Aikido teacher, no one can be a full-time Aikido student.
Right.
And then what happens? The art suffers.
Right. The level goes down.
The level goes down. The edge. You have to be ready. You have to be with your teacher all the time so that if someone ever attacked the teacher, you can defend the teacher's life. Because the teacher's life is more important than your own, because the teacher is trying to keep the art alive.
Right.
But today you don't have that. You go, okay, Sensei, see you later. See you later, Dave. Shut the door and you just drive away, and then your car flips over 8 times. But see, like that too, Furuya Sensei taught us in a very old school way.
Right.
Like when we went to dinner, we have to all go to dinner, even though we drove separate cars, and then we have to all drive back to the dojo. Right. And then we wait till Sensei goes inside, and then we can all go home. Right. And that Sensei started doing that after the editor or publisher of Black Belt Magazine or Inside Kung Fu Magazine got killed. You ever heard that story?
No, I don't know that story.
So supposedly they're going to ABC Seafood, which is right up the street here. And the publisher or editor of Black Belt Magazine or Inside Kung Fu Magazine had a meal with these karate teachers or martial artists. And so when they left the restaurant, the publisher or person went one way and the martial arts teachers went the other way. And then he goes mugged and killed. And so Sensei was like, that's old school. You have to walk the person to their car. Right. You have to drive them to their house and wait for them to go inside. You have to, when you drop them off, you have to wait for them to go inside and unlock the door and go inside. So like as a student, we had to, if we went to dinner, we all went to dinner and then we had to come back to the dojo. And then you're hoping that Sensei would just go, okay, good night, and go inside and not start talking. You're like, oh my God, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, Sensei, please go inside. But that's old school method, old school style, that when you walk with the Sensei, you have to walk in like a diamond formation around the teacher, one on each side, one in front, one in back, because the teacher can't get killed because the teacher is supposed to transmit the art to the next level, right? And so the highest ranking, most strongest person is in the front and back, and then the middle junior people are on the sides. They go, well, why don't you put the lowest ranking fodder student in the front. You go, because there's only 4 of you. And then those levels, white belts or people who aren't skillful aren't allowed to have a close relationship with the teacher.
Right.
So they would never be there. So it would only be head student, second head student, third head student, fourth head student, and then they would walk in its formation behind them around the teacher.
But I think that there is something that, at least here, because we can't really speak for other dojos, but you found a way, I think, to teach hard, difficult things, while at the same time, at least student to student, of having a good student community.
I guess, but I mean, even then, like, you're not supposed to eat the last
I know.
last serving or last dumpling.
Etiquette and politeness.
I see people do it all the time. I'm like, what are you doing? When you fill, the old days, you weren't supposed to fill the teacup to the top. You're supposed to fill it to where there's enough room to grab the teacup.
Or it isn't hot.
And the person doesn't burn their fingers and then burn their lip, right? But people just fill all over the top, man. More is better. Or when I was a student, you couldn't, we would go to dinner with Sensei and you couldn't order drinks. So Sensei would, if we went to Chinese a lot, so Sensei would just get water and tea. And then everybody would, hi.
Water and tea.
No one said, I'll get a Coke or I'll have a beer. No way. Yeah. The nail that sticks up gets hammered down. You go, I'll take a beer, and you start ordering. Sensei looks at you, and then like, that whole hour he's riding you, and you're like, I should just not order. So they never just sat there. Everything you did could draw the teacher's ire, and then you didn't want that. So you did whatever he said. He ordered for everyone. He didn't order drinks. You didn't do that either.
So Sensei, what was if you had to think about this, what was your favorite, or you think the most effective part of old school? Because I think there's still some old school components here. But when you look back on the 34 years and you're like, oh my God, we're talking about old versus new, what did you think was the best part of the old system?
Something about how Sensei never said kill each other.
Right.
He never said beat up these people. He never said be a jerk to each other. But there was just something about it where he made everyone train hard, and he made it a martial art. And you went places you didn't go, I do Aikido. You're like, I do Aikido. Yeah. But today you go, I do Aikido, and everybody in the room lost. Ha ha ha! Aikido fake. Oh my God! And you have to sit there going, ha ha ha! Yes, yeah, it is fake. You guys are right. Like when I walk in the room and someone goes Aikido, so I go, what did you say?
Right.
You want to go? And then they're like, oh, this guy's crazy, right? My calligraphy teacher told me, he goes, before I met you, he's a Japanese calligraphy teacher. He said, I always thought Aikido was for women and old people.
Yeah.
He's like, but after I met you, he's like, I really gained respect for Aikido because you do it as a martial art. And I'm like, yeah, the other people.
So to some sense, Furuya Sensei and then through yourself, this creation of this energy that the students tap to train really, really hard.
Yeah.
That's something that flows from the teacher.
Yeah, it does. And then, when people ask me what Furuya Sensei's style is, it's hard for me to kind of pinpoint what his style is. Well, his style is
it's a mental component.
Deathly serious about everything that he does.
Yeah. It's really the mental component.
Yeah. And so you could not walk up to Sensei and just start small talking. Hey, I read this book by, Ulysses S. Grant. And then says, go, what is it about? Tell me about it. I mean, I just saw it. And then say, you're just walking up and then you just tear on down.
Trash you.
So yeah, you can never come at him with any type of BS, stupid comment, suck up, show offness. Oh my God. I used to have this Emerson quote on my email at the end. Man, he lit me up about it. And then he went on his Yahoo group.
And then lit you up some more.
This person, and they didn't name my name, but man, he lit me up. And you're just like, dude, it's just a quote in an email. But yeah, you couldn't come to him with any type of bullshit. You couldn't, or fakery that you're trying to suck up to him. He would just go off on you.
Yeah.
And so
I remember that.
You're afraid, right? So you're serious about, you learn how to be serious. But then, I learned the first couple times, I think I told this before, I was talking to someone outside, and then Sensei said, what are you guys talking about? And just casually, I went, oh, we're talking about how Aikido doesn't work, and you should cross train with Shotokan. And then Sensei went off at me, and I was like, oh, why did I say we?
Right.
It was him. I was just listening. Oh my God. So then I learned how to take a breath, take a breath, figure out what I'm going to say, knock on the door, and like, hello, Sensei, I need to talk to you about this specific thing for this specific thing. Do you have time right now to speak to me about it? No. Okay. I will get back to you, and then just bail. But if you said, I want to talk about this thing, you go, don't you barge in here, I'm busy. And then he goes off on you, and then you're just like, why don't I do that? So you had to, like, before you knocked on the door, you had to take a breath. I would do this. I don't know about other people. Okay, I want to say this, and I want to talk about this. And I got to be polite. Knock on the door, come in. Good morning, Sensei. I need to speak to you about, plumbing. Do you have time right now? No. Okay, I will get back to you today. Okay. And just exit the room.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I was thinking is that this reminds me, I mean, I'm a former university teacher, and I was there in the mid-teens of 2000. And then there's a movement in a lot of universities about microaggressions. If you say something, it's like words are violence. People are very worried about offending people. You could never be in our dojo in the old days and have that mentality, because you got excoriated, yelled at, beaten up on like microaggression. Everything was full on aggression.
Well, but that's the thing. The teacher is trying to create adherence. So yeah, they only want the people that adhere, because time is of the essence.
Well, I also think be a little bit of toughness. Like don't be a flower.
I don't know if it's toughness as a focus. You did that to create this toughness,
right?
But I learned how to speak to people, and so what I knock on the door and I say, "Excuse me, may I talk to you about this thing? Do you have time?" And then, they're like, "Oh, you're so nice and polite." I'm like, "Oh," I was like, I have no idea. I learned this at the end of the slap, right? And then, but that's the thing, is that you can't really learn. The question is, can you really learn in this woke society? I don't know.
I think it's very hard. I mean, it's certainly hard to teach old style.
Well, what is old style, right? Like, I mean, when I was a little kid, my dad punched me in the face.
Yeah, that's a bad old style.
But I mean, I never did the thing he was hitting me for ever again, right? And so when Sensei yelled at me, and the first 5 to 10 times when I would just come in and blurt something out, that day, and then he would go off on me, and I'm like, oh my God.
Another thing, what do you think about respect? Because I think that the unique dynamics of Aikido practice, like respect has to be a key element of that practice.
Etiquette maintains traditions, right? But we also have to look at these etiquettes and traditions and say, update them today. Are they relevant today? I mean, when I was a student, you could not give Sensei a gift. It was cash, food. It had to be something which was ephemeral, kind of. It couldn't be anything concrete. You couldn't give him a watch. You couldn't give him a knife. You couldn't give. One time I gave him a gift card to Barnes and Noble for Christmas, and he goes, "You think I read any books that are Barnes and Noble?" And then he just went on this whole tirade about corporate bookstores ruining America, and you're like, dude, that's a freaking gift, and then he gave it back to me and said, "No, thank you." At Christmas, you're like, "Damn, dude, like, okay, but I can never do that." Tan would be like, "Hey, I love Barnes and Noble. Thank you so much." And then I have to write them a kind thank you note. "Hey, I'm so thankful for the way that that you're not allowed to be like that to people." But then I learned. So then I learned how to give. So I look at the person, look at they're wearing, stuff that they buy, things they talk about, and I try to find the right gift for them.
Right, for it to make sense.
But I learned that when my own martial arts teacher went off on me about a Barnes & Noble gift card.
See, one thing that I think that's super interesting about, we just talk about etiquette or making things appropriate to the context, is in this world where there's a lot of social conflict, that etiquette, and especially the unique relationship between uke and nage, maybe it's differently than other martial arts. Like there's a lot of relevance from the old lessons to the new environment that we're in.
There is, but then how do you get someone to want that? I mean, it kind of just organically happens in the old way. So like, I love giving handwritten cards,
Right.
Christmas cards, but I learned that from my own teacher because I was with him at the Glendale Galleria, but when it was really, really popular, and we went into this high-end stationery store, and he meticulously picked out these like awesome Christmas cards. And then I thought, I want to do that too. And then so I started buying Christmas cards and sending them to people's handwriting, everything and all this stuff, because it's something I saw my teacher do that I thought was awesome.
Right.
But today, people don't spend time with their teacher. So they don't get to learn, they don't
learn the hidden lesson.
Yeah, the gifts that they give. Like, I get these gifts from people and I'm like, did you even think about this? But I don't say anything. I just go, oh, thank you. And then my mind, I go, what the hell was that?
Right.
Like I'll say, people go, I'm going to France, I'm going to Italy. Do you want me to bring you anything? I go, just bring something to put it, also my, the offering just Furuya Sensei.
Right.
And the stuff that they bring, I'm like, dude, I said it's an offering, man. Right. I don't need a log of cheese. Where am I going to, I can't give that as an offering. And I go, I don't even eat cheese either. So it's like, oh my God, is this person an idiot or something? And they think this is ridiculous, but like I said, just bring something small back that we could put into Furuya Sensei's altar as an offering or osamae. And they go, oh, okay, I'll do that. And then they bring this log of cheese, they think, dude, or large bottle of wine. And I go, well, like Twinkies, right? So you could have just bought one cookie.
Yeah, one cookie.
And it's, but they bring like a freaking log of cheese or a big thing of wine. And I go, what do I do with this? So I just regift it. They go, thanks. And then I just regift it to Maria or something.
Right.
But that's the thing, is that the old school method, you're afraid of the teacher.
Right.
You're trying your best to, I'm not satisfied is not the right word, but you're trying to live up to being, it was a big deal to say, I am Furuya Sensei student. Because if you said, I'm Furuya Sensei student and you weren't, we'd beat you up.
Right.
So that wasn't something that you would take lightly. Like when Furuya Sensei was alive, people used to come, train one day, take a picture with him, and then put on the internet they're his student. So Furuya Sensei stopped taking pictures.
But Furuya Sensei cultivated a very strong style of teaching and a strong style of practice. I mean, I can attest to this. Is a very tiny story, but I was working in Singapore for an extended period of time, my early days as a lawyer, and I trained in Singapore. Sensei told me who to go to and all that. And then I'm putting my hakama on in the dressing room. And the senior student reads the Japanese. And he's like, oh my God, you're from Furuya Dojo. And it was like all this layer of expectation, pursuit of excellence, commitment. Like people like will recognize that. And then you're like, I better not screw up this class and come off as a weak student. Like I remember like every night I went as hard as I could go because I didn't want word to get back to Furuya Sensei that I suck.
But see, that's the thing that they don't, like the other day I was talking with someone in another country, and then I asked him, who is your teacher?
Right.
And he said, Christian Tissier. And I said, have you ever met Christian Tissier? And he said, no. And I go,
awesome.
Dude, he ain't your teacher, dude. He's never been to a seminar. He just watches his videos. And I said, who is your teacher? He said, Christian Tissier. And I go, have you ever met him? No. Yeah. You think, what? How can you call that person your teacher? Like, and that's funny because when people would come from the outside, Sensei would be really nice to them. And then they would say, oh, Furuya Sensei is your teacher. And then I would say, did Furuya Sensei ever yell at you? No, he's not your teacher then.
Right.
Because the teacher has to yell at you for you to be recognized as the teacher. But do you know why?
No, what's the logic behind it?
The logic behind it, I think, I don't know. This is just what I
conjecture,
figured out, is that mistakes are the most honest thing that you can do.
Interesting. Anyone
could suck up to the teacher. Anyone can stand up tall. Anyone could do the right thing when no one's, not when no one's looking, but like you're like, oh, that's the right thing, and you do it. Anyone can fake it doing the right thing. but no one ever fakes a mistake.
They're legit.
Yeah. You'd have to be a psychopath to fake this mistake, to create this thing, to do this thing, that this thing, you'd be a psychopath. But the most honest thing that you can do is make a mistake. And then the teacher's got you. Right? I said, pour the water in on the left side. And you poured it on the right side. Now the humidifier is damaged. Right. What's your story? And then you go, oh, I wasn't paying attention. Caught you. Right. That's a mistake is the most honest thing you can do. But see,
because I think I was hearing this earlier conversation you had with another student about not only is this mistake honest, but there was a style, especially with Furuya Sensei, that he would correct and almost more than instruct. It's like, don't do that, move this way.
Well, because it's technical, right? So a correction, Furuya Sensei would always talk about it as being a correction.
Right.
But we take it as a scolding. We take it personal. But Furuya Sensei is like, this is a correction. I'm correcting you.
Right. It's not
your
personal.
Foot needs to be right here. Your back needs to be straight. And then as a student, you're supposed to be listening. So like what happens is that like Furuya Sensei and I had a very difficult relationship. So he never corrected me directly. So
you had to listen.
So what I had to do is that I had to live vicariously through others. And then when Furuya Sensei corrected them, I made sure that I was doing
the same change.
Yeah. But people today don't do that. They go, oh, Bill got corrected. No, you should think to yourself, do I do that? Am I that person?
Steal it.
Yeah, steal it. Yeah. That's, you got to steal the technique. But today we have to tell them everything, right? And so when the teacher yells at you, the teacher corrects you, the teacher scolds you, that's for your own good. Right. So that's the old school method. That's why I said at the beginning, both are done with a student focus. So today the old days, they corrected you, yelled at you. It's for your own good.
Do you think there was an element also of the yelling? I wasn't in the military. I don't think you were in the military. But there's an element, like if you watch something like boot camp, where the aggressiveness and the constant criticism like helps you develop this mentality where you're not like easily damaged.
Well, yeah, you're supposed to develop thick skin. Right. But the hard part is that you develop animosity.
So one of the things I think about too is like this, not only this thick skin, but if you ever are in a conflict, you have to win the mental battle first.
Yeah, and I mean, there is a whole thing about that. Like I was having lunch with Kojima Sensei at another time, and he told me that when you're a junior priest and you come into the temple, even though you've been indoctrinated and you moved in, the senior priest is always mean to you and harsh on you. And I said, what? Why? He said, it's for their own good. I said, what if they don't need it? He goes, oh, everyone needs it. And then I said, but doesn't that create animosity between the senior and junior? He goes, oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
And I go, but isn't that bad for the temple? He said, hey, parents who have two children, oftentimes the two children grow up to be completely different people.
Right.
Same thing with the temple. And I said, well, what if there's animosity? He goes, if there's animosity, now you know where you need to put in the work.
Wow.
And he goes, wow, that's brutal, man.
It is brutal.
But that's the thing, is that when I was a student, and I think I've talked about this before, I hated Furuya Sensei. Yeah. I trained so hard so that I could beat him. But see, he somehow lit the fire. So that's where they say the student has Iji, willfulness, and then you're supposed to change that into konjo, fighting spirit. And so the easiest way to do that is for the teacher to be your enemy,
to be hard,
to be your opponent. And then you're like, I'm going to beat him. And then en route to beating that person, you arrive.
You
develop. And so that's the hard part, that, the teacher has to be kind of your enemy, or the head students, right? Whoever, but there's got to be someone for you to beat, because if there's no one for you to beat, you'll never grow. Yeah, I'll never grow. You think, no, like that's the thing. The reason why the teacher is brutal to you is they're trying to reveal who you truly are. And so that's why they catch you making a mistake, because that's the most honest thing.
Right.
And then that reveals your true heart. And then your true heart ends up being the thing that you're going to use to betray the teacher, betray the art, be lazy or whatever it is. And the teacher needs to know, because they have to eradicate that negative trait from your personality before it's too late. And that's why they have to smash your ego until the day before they die or the day after they die, right? So the idea is that the teacher suppresses your ego and smashes you down, tamping you down, bam, 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 and then the teacher dies. The whole time the teacher's like, "You're horrible, you're the worst," and then the teacher dies. And then everyone goes, "Dude, what do we do?" And you go, "I'm not the teacher." And they go, "Dude, you're the teacher now." And then you go, "Oh, I am the teacher now." So the teacher did all this work to suppress your ego, so you wouldn't, when the time was right, your head wouldn't go, get all huge, and then you get all crazy. That's what happened when Furuya Sensei died. The person that we made the chief instructor, he had been gone for a long time, lost his mind. Yeah. And you think, and some of the students lost their minds too. I love it. People were like, "I'm your senior. I've been here longer than you." And I go, "Yeah, but you quit. You stopped training." I have never stopped training.
Right.
They go, "Oh, well, and then they try to like throw their Aikido magic on me, and then they got smashed. And then they're like, "Oh, I guess you are." One person said, "I heard you got strong." After Furuya Sensei died, the person came back. "I heard you got strong." And then we did Rotomochi, and then I resisted, and they go, "You did get strong." And I'm like, "Yeah, what do you think, man? You've been gone for 5 years.
Or longer."
Yeah. But that's that thing that the teacher does all these things to suppress your ego so that when the time comes, your ego is in check.
Right.
And
it'll be in the right mental state.
Right.
Step up.
And then, but if they don't, you think you're God's gift to Aikido, flower arranging, tea ceremony, or whatever it is, and then you're going to kill the art. And then the teacher didn't do their job. And that's the problem with today. People say and do things to me today, and I go, "I should smash this down." And then I go,
"Can't do it.
They're too old. They're too this. Or just hang out. Okay. And then I just suffer through it, right? Because also some of those people aren't the one. But what ends up happening is that it becomes a epidemic, because one bad apple spoils the bunch. And that's why I always talk to you guys about not doing that. Don't be like that. Don't say those things, because they see you do it, and then they're going to act like doing it. Like two people used to beat up this one student when he was a white belt, and then he became a black belt. And then I saw him throttling people, and I took him aside and I said, "Hey, man,
Don't do that."
Why? Not only that, I just said, those people used to do that to you, and they were wrong.
Right.
Don't turn around and do it to others, because he's just doing what they did, which is what I did too. They beat me up, and then I in turn beat other people up too. But that's wrong.
Right.
Because again, it's mindless. You're just acting out your upsetness on other people.
So do you think that that's an enlightened position you keep to after becoming a teacher about that? Because I'm trying to think of like, what are the things that are new that you think are valuable? And I'm wondering if this is one of them.
I don't know if that's, well, I definitely spend a lot of time with the students. Well, Furuya Sensei spent almost no time with me. I might have driven in places, done stuff with them, but like the whole drive, he didn't say a word.
Right. And
then I knew my place, and so I didn't go, "Hey, Sensei, so about that Iri Minage thing," I was like, "Look, you keep your mouth shut, then there's a very high likelihood he will leave you alone."
Right.
So I do want, what you want. You don't want the teacher to go off on you. Because like when Furuya Sensei was a student at Home Dojo, him and his friend were walking down the street, and they're walking, and then the friend grabbed Sensei and pulled him into an alley. So he's like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Dude, you see Doshu?" And then Doshu walked by, and they go, "Oh my God." Because if Doshu sees you, he might see something and then go off on you, because that's the old school way. So yeah, like I'm driving Sensei, like I go, "I'm not saying nothing." Right. So today it's like, I spend a lot of time talking to people. Well, "Hey, don't be like that." Right. Hey, I spent a lot of time coaching people, which Sensei
never did.
Yeah. I don't even know if he did it with Watanabe. Maybe he did. I don't know. It doesn't seem like he did, but he never did it with me. So, but I try to. I go, "Hey," or I also see things where I go, "Oh, here's an example of how good you're getting. You could be good at Aikido."
Right.
Sensei never said that to me, man.
He wouldn't say that to anyone, probably.
It's just, you're horrible. You should just kill yourself. And so you just laugh, right? So the old joke was your left foot, your other left foot. Oh, you should just kill yourself.
But the funny thing is, every one of the students that's been here a long time, they all remember your other left foot, kill yourself.
Or, just
by some version of it.
Or it never happened to me. Did it ever happen to you?
I don't know, but I know that I heard it.
I've heard it, but
many, many times.
2 of my high school friends did Aikido, and in the 6th month, both of them
got the other left foot.
Quit.
People still make the same mistakes, so their feet will be wrong. They'll go to the wrong foot. And I'm like, I actually see it. People are supposed to be moving one side and they're moving the other.
Yeah, but that's this whole idea of using humiliation to create change,
right?
To create adherence.
That's not popular right now.
Was it ever popular? Did you want, like, one time I squirted Sensei with a hose? You heard this story?
By accident, right?
By accident.
Yeah, I remember that story.
And then I was washing down, and then 2 visitors came, and then Sensei came outside, and then he grabbed the hose and pulled it out of my hand, and we kind of struggled with those, and the hose squirted him, and then the visitors started laughing. And then afterwards, I took him to the parking lot, and then I came back, and then Sensei chased me all over the alley trying to squirt me with the hose. And then because those guys laughed, I pounded them. I was such a jerk because I was so mad that Sensei got squirted and that they laughed. And so now, whenever Sensei would come on and try to grab the hose, I always pointed it at myself. Because better that I get squirted than him. But the whole point of that story is that afterwards, Sensei told everybody that I squirted him. And then all these people made fun of me. And then Sensei said, I told everyone so that he would never do it again. Right. And I was like, yeah, sure enough. So whenever he went to grab the hose, I always pointed it at myself. So that at least I got squirted and he did not. But like, you learn, right? So like this idea of using humiliation to create adherence, your left foot, your other left foot. Oh my God, you should just quit.
Kill yourself. Right.
Then that person's humiliated because then you have these, chicken people laughing because Sensei said something mean to you.
It's interesting. Like, I think of, like you're talking about going off of people. I remember, like, of all the years of my training, the most memorable Sensei memory I have is I'm sometimes late to Aikido for their work, but in the weekends, I pretty much was on time. But at Iaido, I remember one time, and there was a stupid accident along the way coming from Newport, and I was like 3 minutes late. And I sat in the car, and I was like, do I go in or do I not go in? Because he was worse in Iaido than he was in Aikido. Like, he was even like double Sensei. I remember I'm like, here, I'm going to walk in. And I walk in, and he like lit me up like fireworks. Like, I was like, oh crap. And then he's like, and now do 1,000 Saburi. And I don't know that I've ever done 1,000 Saburi with my sword. I have done it with a bokken. And I remember right around 600, I was cramping and the whole thing. He looks at me, he's like, oh my God, you're so pathetic. And he's like, just stop. I can't watch you make a massacre of Saburi. But I remember the feeling. I was like 1 minute late. I was like, it's probably not worth it going in. And then I went, and that was the most lit up he ever lit me up. And it was bad. I was like,
but see, what you don't realize is that he showed you compassion.
In what way?
He told you to stop at 600.
Yes, it's true.
But the thing is, the 2 ways to look at it is that he was being mean to me, maybe do 1,000 Saburi, and then he humiliated me, and then I stopped. Or he came over, made a joke about it, and then showed me compassion and allowed me to stop because he realized he was being mean. See, that's the hard part, is that most people look at it as he was just being mean.
Right.
Like, even me, like, I look back on my training. I was with Furuya Sensei for 17 years on one day. And the things that he did to me, I go, oh my God, horrible. They're horrible. They were mean, they lacked compassion. But today, I never do that to others. So it was a very good lesson. Yeah. Like the meanness that Sensei showed me, I would never do to someone. So it had to happen so that I wouldn't be that way. So if you could look at it, if you could only see things with sober eyes and think, gosh, that really trained me. So now you try not to be late, right? You learn to think ahead. You learn to all these different things because those lessons you learned at the end of the slab. right? And then you have to sit there and think, how do I do that to other people today?
But that requires a pretty high level of self-reflective ability.
Oh, yeah, which no one has.
But that's not popular.
I would say that on a certain level, and I'm not tooting my own horn, I'm probably the only one. Dude, when my mom was dying, they called and said, you got to come to the hospital tonight. She's going to die tonight.
Right.
So we run to the hospital. I get in the room. My brothers are crying. My mom's crying. And they're all saying, oh, it was a bad son. I was a bad mom. And they're all crying and saying this over, I'm a bad son, I'm a bad mom. And I go, whoa, hey, everyone, take a breather. Yeah. Mom's not dead yet. Why don't we talk about the things that we remember that were good, we enjoyed, and our fondest memory? Dude, they looked at me like, who the F are you?
Interesting.
And then they just kept doing it. I was like, whoa. So, I mean, it's just I learned that in Aikido, that I try to look on the brighter side of it, but I always didn't, though. But today I try to look at it and think, yeah, Sensei did these mean things to me, but look what I got from it. Look at this thing. Oh, that I didn't get that thing. Oh, but look what happened. Look what came about. Okay, well, I guess it wasn't the worst thing in the whole wide world. It sucked. It was mean, but I go, oh, yeah, okay. I get it now. You know, it made me who I am today.
I think that's true. I think it's true. I mean, I think of like the hard, almost the hardest, other than like my parents passing away, the hardest lessons. I think the requiring of the most self-reflectiveness and willing to change was in practice.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was spoiled as a kid. I did really well, like in school and work, but I was still really, really spoiled. So like the treatment from Sensei was really alien for me. I was like, what the hell is this? But, you know, it's like, I do think that, you know, now looking back on all those years, that there was the thing that I think of the most. You kind of hit on it earlier. I think of it as excellence. Like, he was relentless about excellence. And that's like, even now people are like, I mean, you want me to be relentless about excellence? That's really hard to do. But he did it. And the people that are still here that started under him, I think there's a higher level of commitment to excellence, or at least trying.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing, but like, Sensei, it didn't win him any points. It didn't keep students.
No.
It didn't, you know, I mean, on a certain level, it made his life a little bit sad.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're forcing everyone to live at their best. And so because they're not living at their best, they're just not going to show up. Right. So what happens most times is if they showed up 3 minutes late, they wouldn't even have come in. Right. Because they didn't want the tongue lashing or the ass kicking. And then they just go, that's all right. Right. They just went to breakfast. So how do you create balance? What's the most important thing? Right. So like, that's the hard part. Like, what do you do today? And how do you say these things to people? I mean, you learn to block because someone hit you in the face. Right. So if no one ever hits you in the face, you never really learn to block. And then when the time comes for you to block, not that there's any blocking in Aikido, you can't block. Right. And so what do you do today? You know, how do you live your life, and how do you teach people Aikido when the onus of learning is now placed upon the shoulders of the teacher to create the program which creates excellence inside of you? Sensei forced me to be good. I had no choice. If I wanted to beat him, I had to be excellent.
Right.
So everything I did, I tried to have this level of grind and excellence and grit so that I could beat him. But if no one's trying to beat me, how are they going to get good? That's the thing I don't understand. I don't know. I can't go, well, this is how you roll. No, you got to roll thousands of times to get that roll perfect. There's nothing I can say or do which will get you to that. Yeah, shorten that 1,000 times you got to roll.
But I do think that this pursuit of excellence, you can have it in your job, you can have it in your relationships, you can have it in your friendships. But I do think that Furuya Sensei did it, and our JoJo still does it, which is like, excellence matters. Like, there's a lot of people in the world that are like, look, I just want to get by. Whatever it is, their job, their relationship, they're just like, I don't want any conflict. I don't want any, I just want to go along to get along. And being excellent in whatever you do, I think the thing that you're like really talking about is this ability to be attentive, concentration, suppress your ego, all these things which were, really beaten into you under the old method. They're still really good things though, because it doesn't matter what your discipline. If you're trying to be a good lawyer, good doctor, good acupuncturist, like you've got to like know what works and what doesn't work.
But how do you instill those traits in people? You can't. They are not teachable, but they are learnable. So they terrorized you and you're getting good. Today, you have to go, I wouldn't mind getting good and throwing some time at this thing. No, man, you got to like eat, sleep, and breathe Aikido to get good at Aikido so that if anyone ever does anything, you throw them down, pin them down, do all these things. How do you give that to people? I mean, how do you teach? How do you get them to learn that when they're like, I only come on Wednesdays?
The pursuit of excellence is a holistic quality of your existence. If you commit yourself to, like, if you're really committed to excellence in one area, and whatever it is, you're going to see your lack of excellence in the other things, and you're going to want to bring everything up to that same level. I do believe that.
Yeah, but then how do you, if it's my job to make you good, how do I get you to get those traits?
Well, I think the one thing that is new that you've talked about is understanding each person. So I do think that that's like, if you understand what a person's challenge is, and you're like, you got to sit in a room with snakes for 48 hours and you can't leave under you're either going to get comfortable with sitting with the snakes or you'll probably have a mental breakdown. But hopefully you'll get comfortable with the snakes.
Yeah, but no one ever gets comfortable. And then what ends up happening is that when your star falls from grace, they jump aboard and they go, he made me sit with snakes. I want to be part of this $2.1 million settlement.
Right.
And then you go, I was doing this to make you good. It wasn't right. And that's why the thing is that the hardest part about being a teacher is that the teacher does not get to choose their students. Right. Students choose their teacher, but the teacher doesn't get to choose the student. The teacher can choose to accept that student, but really until people walk through the door, you're waiting for them.
I think there's an old school element to this that I remember because I started with a different teacher who brought me here and said, study here. And this is what he said. So I know it's a drive. He said, but the most important thing in traditional martial art is to get the right teacher.
Well, the best teacher you can get. Yeah.
Yeah, right. The best. But I mean, he really did say to me, he's like, I'm not the guy to be doing that. This is the person you should be studying with. I was like, wow. And then he said, like, the single most important thing in your martial arts training is having the right teacher, having the best teacher.
But then who today is a really good best teacher? It's subjective.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard question, but I still think the idea of excellence is one we should pursue. Like, you want to have, if you're going to learn something, you want to learn it from the person who's the best.
Right, but you're one of these crusty 55-year-olds.
I know.
Right? You're not a 25-year-old who goes, hey, man, Aikido is Aikido. It doesn't really matter. I'm only going to be here for 3 months anyways. And then you go, oh.
Well, some of that has to come from the other students. Like, the encouragement.
But
say, hey, man, you realize like what you got here is really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you got to see, again, you're having to convince them, hey, buddy, I'm going to say this is, you do your song and dance while this is the best place you ever want to go to. Like, there is no song and dance. You either believe or you don't.
Right.
Dude, Furuya Sensei's fat.
He was.
But dude, honestly, I didn't know how fat he was until he died. Right. And then we had to get like an extra big coffin and hearse. And then I went, oh my God, as a healthcare professional, what was I thinking? Because all I could see is this dude is so good at Aikido. Yeah. And if he's good, he probably could make me good. Right. And, I go some other place and I go, that person's a ridiculous teacher. And then I go, well, Furuya Sensei's a really good teacher. And then, but today you don't have that. They go, well, this is closest to my house. this works within my schedule. They basically pick Aikido teachers like I pick yoga places. Well, it's close to my house and it's good schedule.
Got a lot of classes.
I don't really care what the style is. I just want to do yoga.
Right.
But like,
that doesn't really work with traditional martial arts.
No, but that doesn't. But today, what does that mean? What does it mean to be traditional? In my day, there was no cross training. Furuya Sensei would not allow you to. You want cross training? Not here. Leave. Right. But today you're like, I'm going to add BJJ to Aikido because BJJ, is a good complement to Aikido, which it's not. But you hear that today and you go, what? Oh my God. And they go, oh yeah, this is how you reverse the technique when your Ikkyo doesn't work. No, you better make your Ikkyo stronger so it works. But then you have people going, yeah, you try to do Ikkyo. Now you're going to do it. And you go, oh my God. But then that's what Aikido's become, right? Because Aikido has done it to themselves because there's now too many unqualified teachers.
No, I understand what you're saying.
I have a degree in teaching. I was a personal trainer for 18 years. I've been teaching Aikido for 15, 16 years now.
16 years.
I think I have a lot of background to teach, and I still go, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my God, is this the right way? I don't know. And then I hear these people like 100% of my students, hit their goals. I go, that sounds like a lie to me. Right? But that's the things like today, because I don't know how to give you fighting spirit. I don't know how to give you stick-to-itiveness, perseverance, all these things that I had to have to beat my teacher because I was not one of his favorites. Yeah. Right. And so if I was going to beat him, I had to be
extra
hard, stay longer, do all these things where he's like, I wish Dave would just leave. Like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to beat you. Yeah. But like, how do you give that to people? Because again, in the old days, the onus of learning was on the student. Today, it's on the teacher. And the teacher cannot give you anything. No one can teach you anything. You must learn it for yourself. Yeah. So if you have to learn it for yourself, how do you do that?
I think there's also like an education for younger people. In the style of education today, it's very self-validating as opposed to...
But it has to be on a certain level because you're trying to get people not to become discouraged and then they go, well, I give up. This person went off on me because I can't do math. And my daughter's going through that today.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're just going, hey, oh, you got that. All right. Yeah. You're doing okay. You're doing all right. Because you're trying to get her to not hate math.
Right.
You're trying to, people say, oh, yeah, 8th place trophies and participation trophies are ruining this and that.
Competition.
It is, and it isn't. It's most of these people are never going to become a great soccer player anyways.
Right.
But what you're trying to do is you're trying to get them to be okay with just trying, right? And I see it. I totally see it. When we pound mochi, dude, there's no way I would have come out of the crowd and just start pounding in front of everybody. I'd be like, that's okay. No, because I didn't know how to do it. Today we go, anybody want to pound? Dude, people jump out of the crowd. I'll do it. And they suck. But they're having like the greatest time.
And they participate.
And I go, oh, that's the participation trophy 8th place person. Right. And that's the thing is the dojo needs those people because they need people to jump in. The person who's always winning goes, I can't win. I don't try. So I never go.
Right.
The person who's never won goes, oh, I don't mind trying. Right. So see, like, I can see how it works. But again, the, participation trophy, 8th place trophy person in soccer is never going to go on to become the greatest professional soccer player in the world. But they might become this person who wasn't mine right out around kicking the ball. Right. There's people out there, they go, I would never go do Aikido. I don't want to be criticized by other people. So they're never going to try. Right. So because they never try, the art is going to die. But the hardest part is today is to try to find a way to make Aikido and other traditional arts valid in the 21st century.
Yeah, I mean, I was really thinking of your initial statement as you were getting to this point of like, what is the relevancy of Aikido or any martial art? I mean, all of them are suffering.
Right.
Because, all martial arts
because violence is looked down upon.
Yeah.
We don't fight people anymore in the street. So see, like violence, there's no violence. There's no choking your boss. There's no saying to your boss, you want to step outside?
Right.
you go to jail or you lose your job right away. But in the old days, you'd say, pardon me, step outside, and you slapped him with your glove, and then it was on. But they don't have that anymore. Yeah. So violence doesn't have a place.
It's not accepted.
Well, it's losing its place in modern society. Yeah. So then what do you do with it? So you have to change it. It has to transform from jutsu, technique, to do, a way of life that has this edge. The edge in martial arts is what creates the sharp person. Mm-hmm. Because someone's trying to hit you in the head, you have to be very precise in how you move, and then you do all these things, but then that preciseness in how you move becomes preciseness in your life, and then it benefits your life. So that's the thing, is traditional martial arts, is Aikido relevant today? On a certain level, yes. On a certain level, no. But it's for people to not think about it as Aikido sucks. BJJ, any BJJ person can beat up an Aikido person. Any Taekwondo person can beat up, BJJ. It's like, dude, the ability is in the practitioner, not the art, right? Dude, you ever watch cops? These dudes are on drugs going crazy. The cops can't hold them down.
Right, it's like 6 cops trying to hold one guy down. Yeah, I know. I saw a practitioner,
right? And then what happens if someone comes right up to you and goes, you want to do something, and you just gouge out that person's eye. Right. And they go, well, you're going to go to jail, but I guess your BJJ or your Aikido or your thing didn't work. Right. Because you weren't able to fend off this guy who just went, I'm sorry, what? And just poked you in the eye. Right. That's the thing. Like today, it's violence doesn't really have a place. So the violence of Aikido, the violence of traditional martial arts has to try to make itself relevant in the 21st century, right? And that's where BJJ is excelling, because you go, no, man, it's about competition. And then the competition is what makes you a man and all this stuff. And Aikido doesn't have competition, because in Aikido, the competition you're having is not with yourself. Yeah. But then if you don't have any self-awareness, there's no possibility for you to have a competition with yourself. Right. So really, it comes back to how come you're not fighting people in the street? I don't know, because I don't want to go to jail. Right?
Which is a good thing. You don't want to spend time in jail. You don't need to.
Yeah. So I mean, the main similarity in old school versus new school is that they're all centered around developing the student.
Self-development.
But today, the new school is about the teacher developing the program so that the student can get good. And then the old days, the teacher created the space for the student to push themselves to get good. So the onus of learning was on the student. But, the hard part is today is to still make a martial art, because it has to have that edge. The edge is what creates the sharpness. And then, but also not destroy people, not punch them in the face. I mean, would you say punch them in the face or yell at them or create nicknames for people?
I wonder though, when I think of the violence arc in my life, from elementary school through early high school, I got in a lot of dust ups and a lot of scuffs and a lot of bullies picking on me. And my dad's like, bully, punch that dude right in the face. And the thing is, maybe, by taking all violence out of our life, I don't think people at 30 years old should be throwing it down in the street. But I do think there is an arc of violence that there's an illustrative component to it, assuming you're not damaging someone permanently.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If we advocate that, kids in high school can fight and all these different things, that's where people get hurt.
Right. Well, yeah,
and then we allow that to happen to people that, dude, my kids don't want to fight, right? And I don't want anyone fighting with my kids, right? And so we're going to allow that because that helps them grow as human beings, but that helps. Where does it help and where does it hurt? The quarterback of the high school is beating everybody up, and then he's lording over others. But the person who's getting beat up goes, I can't handle this anymore, and then they kill themselves, or they get a gun and they kill everyone. And you go, why did he do that? I don't know, because the guy's being a jerk. Yeah. Because we allow violence unchecked to happen. Now it'd be a different story if you said every boy and girl learned learns to box.
And then you have controlled violence.
And then there's this controlled violence. Like in Japan, a lot of people learn martial arts, right? And as a compulsory thing or whatever it is in school.
Part of their education.
And then so maybe that's just controlled violence. But still, it's just the idea that, this little kid goes, I don't want to fight it. And you're like, tear his head off.
Right.
And then the damage it does to you as a human being after having your butt kicked. Right.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that's true, but I also think that I'm not sure we're teaching, this is kind of far afield from old versus new Aikido, but I often wonder, like, if parents get involved in all children's conflicts, the children don't know how to solve, they don't learn how to solve really hard conflicts. And part of life is when you're growing up, they're bigger, smaller, different ethnicity, different race, people say and do harmful, terrible shit. And as a life lesson, you need to learn how to navigate that without your mommy coming to school and saying, he called me, a cracker or whatever it is. And I mean, part of me thinks that, we can't overcompensate for our children.
Yeah, but you have to realize, like, until that person, that child that we're talking about becomes self-aware,
it's not they're going to resonate.
You can't go, you go down there and you punch them in the face. You go down there, you tell them. They go, I don't know how to do that. Right. So they have to become self-aware. They have to become conscious of themselves to be able to stand up for themselves. Right. So, like the other day, 2 students got into a little dust up on the mat, and the more higher ranking student was throwing the white belt down, and
white belt got mad.
No, the white belt got upset. And then he kept letting it happen. And then he stood up and punched the black belt person in the stomach. And I go, whoa, okay, break it up. And then the student walked by me and he goes, I'm sorry, Sensei, I will leave. I go, you don't need to leave. He goes, I'm not in trouble. And I go, no, good for you for sticking up for yourself. Right. But next time, use your words. Right. Because we are supposed to be enlightened beings. Right, we're supposed to be above using physical violence to solve our problems. And this person, these 2 people are already in the late 40s, 50s, and they don't know how to use their words. So your model of, they should fight it out. They should learn to stand up for yourself. Yeah, physical violence. But who ends up winning the physical violence thing? Bigger, stronger, faster. Who loses? Smaller, weaker.
Yeah, I understand. I get it.
So that the thing is that you're trying to, one of the things, like I tell you guys all the time in class, if you don't want to take the Okemi, you don't want to take Great Fall, no, I say, let the person know. Tell them I don't want to communicate. Use your words. Because the thing which I was trying to tell that student when I said, yeah, it's great that you stood up for yourself, next time use your words. So, but I'm hoping that next time he'll go, please don't do that.
Right.
And then you go, you learn, or you teach this person to use their words, their work life just got better. Their home life just got better. They're more skilled. Yeah. That's the thing you're trying to give them, this confidence to say, please don't do that anymore.
Also, I think what's really interesting about that is that it prioritizes respect over outcome. Be responsible for yourself, respect the other person. Don't cause a situation where there's unknown violent outcomes. And I do think like old school Aikido still has relevancy for that, though, in terms of like respect and etiquette. Because if you're in a controlled violence situation and you don't have etiquette, it all breaks down, right? That's kind of what you're saying, like this person.
Yeah. But the hard part about teaching people Aikido as a martial art is that they never want to leave. They don't ever want to leave it being a martial art.
They will go past that.
Because it works.
Right.
It works. It's effective. I'm a tough guy. I do all these things. Think about yourself. Think about the opponent. Yeah, why am I going to do that? Whips. Right. So the hard part about focusing too much on the hard part, the hard style, the self-defense aspects of Aikido is that people don't want to leave it. Furuya Sensei talks about this idea of the plum blossom, right? The hard shell is focusing on war, makes you rough. Focusing on the flower makes you weak. So there has to be this balance. And so like, how do you find the balance today for students as you teach them? I focus too much on the hard style of Aikido as a martial art. They become horrible people. I focus on the spirituality and the philosophical aspects of Aikido. They become weak people.
But some of that, this is where I kind of like, I hem and haw on this, because part of me is like, the best awareness is self-awareness. Like, you have to like self-enlighten yourself. Like, if you can't make that step to say, oh, okay, I punched this person, but next time I'm gonna be like, hey, I don't want to do, as you say, I don't want to do breakball, or whatever the context is. But there's some element of what I think that's old school, is that the person has to learn to have that insight themselves.
Yeah. What percentage do you think the population of the world can do that?
I mean, very low. I mean, I think it's very low.
One. Right. So you're asking them to do, but that's my job as the Aikido teacher to say,
Impossible.
no, is to go, use your words. We don't do that. I must create the structure for them to get good. So I go, get the fight off your face. You heard me joke about it all the time. Hey man, does that guy owe you money? Jeez, don't throw him down so hard. And then, people laugh, but it's true. You go, oh shoot, I'm being too rough on this person. That my job is to remind them to come back. Hey, you don't need that. I said, you're not wrong. Good for you to standing up for yourself, but use your words next time. And then you're hoping that next time he'll go, hey, don't do that to me. Right. Don't crack my wrist like that. Communicate. But that's, dude, what are like the 5 hardest things to say? I was wrong.
I'm sorry.
I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I love you. Right. And all these different things. And like, those are the hard things to say. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I don't know. Dude, we're talking about adults can't say those things. And then you're telling them, don't use violence, use your words, right? Because we use violence because that's the most primal thing. Tearing things off and smashing it, that's primal. But we're living in this age of enlightenment. We're living in the age of choice.
That's true.
And this is the greatest generation ever, because this generation has the opportunity to choose. Choose to be this way, choose to be that way, choose not to do that, choose to do that, choose to be this job, choose all these things that past generations never got to have that choice. So do you choose violence, or do you choose, or something that you go like, dude, I don't want to yell at people. I don't want to fight people on the street. But the whole point of it is that today, if we kind of, get toward the end here, new school, old school, what is the right way? The right way is whatever is right for the time, as Joseph Campbell would say, right? He talks about like religion. Yeah, that religion was relevant in that time,
in that era.
And so today we have to make Aikido relevant today. Do you want to commit violence against others? No. Well, then Aikido's for you. I want to tear people's heads off. I want to punch them. I want to punch their head off. You go, well, maybe MMA karate is for you. That's not for me. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to wake up and go to sleep and see some person's bloody face every time I close my eyes. I don't want to wake up in jail. And those martial arts are only taking you in that direction, because you have no other recourse than to use violence
to solve your problem.
Aikido has a philosophical structure because it's a martial art for the 21st century, because it's supposed to enable us to use our words. It's supposed to enable us to have choice to go, I don't want to do that, so that we don't have to wake up in jail and go,
I screwed up.
All because the guy didn't use his blinker. Well, I mean, that sucks for me. But that's today. How do you teach people? I don't know. Back then, you did whatever the teacher said for as long as the teacher said. Today, I have to be a judge, the jury. I have to be their dad. I have to be their boss. I have to be their coach. I have to be wear all these different hats at all these different times. In the old school way, remember the old school? The only trait you talked about when people asked to be your student was, I am strict. Right. Kibishi. Today you go, well, I'm good at developing people. I've got a more winning personality. I'm very good at cueing. I'm really good at showing praise. Great job, Jim. Hey. Right? But they have to wear all those things just to get the students to train. Yeah. Right?
But if you do that and people do train,
they're better for it.
That's right. I mean, the training wears off on you. If you train more than one, or even if you train one time, it wears off on you. So Maybe that's a good place for us to wrap it up because we could go back and forth on this endlessly.
Well, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast.